This is a Collider.com audio interview.
This is a movie about you.
Is it? It's a movie about... what's it a movie about? Yeah, it's a movie about all of us, and it's a movie about all the guys in the X-Men, but I suppose the person with the biggest journey is arguably me. Just because I change more than anybody by the end of the film than from the beginning of the film. I wanted to make Charles quite extreme relative to who he has always been before when I first took over the part, but I was only able to do that to a certain extent because the film was really about Michael's journey, really. Sure. And as much as I had a great part and I helped facilitate that, and it was like a buddy movie and stuff, and I really had nice stuff to play, it was ultimately his narrative, you know. And this one feels a little different in that I can go further with the extremity of it. So I can go further with the extremity from what Patrick did, but also from what I did in the last movie too. So you find him very different, not just because he's got long hair, but because you know where he is and how shaky his soul is, and that's really the kind of the key to him in this one. Really, is that his power, which has always been seen as psychic ability or great intelligence or whatever. Really, what I think it is empathy is his greatest power, but he's lost the ability to be able to empathise with other people because it's too painful for him. Why? Because he's been given all of his own pain to deal with by Eric and by, as to be said, Raven as well. And it's not just the loss of Eric. It has a lot to do with Eric, and it's a lot to do with his relationship with Eric and their love for each other. But it's also equally as much to do with his love for Raven and the fact that he was sort of abandoned at the end of the last movie by both of them. Not just abandoned, but fucking horribly injured. Okay. And hey, dude, hope you get better. We're going to teleport the fuck out of here. Good luck dealing with the Russians and the Americans. Do you know what I mean? It's like, guys, there's a really good cartoon on YouTube. Is it How X-Men First Class Should Have Ended? Oh, yeah. And at the end of it, there's a great bit where she's like, "Sure, even though, like, you know, Charles is my brother, and you know, I spent my entire life with him. Yeah, I'll go with you, Eric. No problem." And you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. There's another great bit where she goes, "Hey, Beast, mutant and proud," and Beast goes, "I am covered in blue hair from head to toe. Nothing you say means anything to me. Nothing."
So the scene we were just watching, we're all wondering because we watched from the outside,
yeah,
and the plane shakes quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, we know that Michael is harnessed somehow so that he doesn't fall down. But how do you balance or support yourself?
I don't. I try to fall with a good aim. So I try to fall on the soft things. I think our third take, I cracked my knee quite badly. But that was just my own fault. The plane wasn't even throwing me around. I just tripped over a camera and fucking smacked my knee. So I'm going to be limping for a week. You just try and fall on the soft stuff. And it was quite nice. The first time they did it, they said, "Do you want to rehearse?" I said, "No, let's just do it and see where it throws me." And I'm quite bendy, I'm quite bouncy, so I usually sort of land well. As I'm getting older though, I'm 34 now, you know what I mean? I reckon I've only got like 4 or 5 more years of doing that kind of shit before it's like, oh, I think we'll be getting the stunt double in here. Oh.
It's great to do a scene with Patrick Stewart. I would imagine. It's weird, I would also imagine, to do a scene with Patrick Stewart where you're the same character.
Kinda, yeah, but we're very different interpretations of that character by nature of the fact that we're very different times in that character's lives. I once saw Patrick Stewart have to do Shylock to the face of David Suchet, another great Shakespearean actor, and he was doing Shylock back. Because they basically sort of had a disagreement about, this was on some TV documentary, they basically had a disagreement about what the best way to play Shylock was. And the guy who ran the RSC says, "Well, why don't we just take one of the scenes and you can play Shylock, and then we'll do it again, and then you can play Shylock, and we'll see which is best." And they Shylocked off, man. But with me and him, it's different because we're at very different times in his life. And also, it's weird because when I took over the role of Charles, I never thought that I'd be working with him. I never thought I'd give a similar performance to him. And I certainly never thought that I'd be giving a very different performance to him to his face. Kind of going like, yo, what you got, man? Whoa, show me your big nose. We've got big noses together. And it's like a profile shot with like both our noses going conk to conk. And I think he wins slightly, but they tell me that your nose grows with age. So by the time I'm his age, I think I'll be knocking the shit out of him. In the nose wars.
I'm just now envisioning you in the Jesse Pinkman role in that matchup. And he's the Walter White.
Who's the Jesse Pinkman?
Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Did the two of you discuss that scene? Like, how you shot that sort of thing?
That was my first day. I rocked up on set. It was their last day, my first day. The whole first month of the shoot was kind of hectic because they had all those guys who were in for a month, and they were like, yeah, we'd love to do X-Men again, but as soon as we're not playing the biggest parts, then you get us out of there quick. And they were like, yeah, groovy, but they wrote this massive fucking sequence for them all. So it was like working till 3 a.m. every night to kind of get people out. Like Hallie had to get out, Ellen had to get out, Sean had to get out, but certainly Ian and Patrick had to go. So they were all banjaxed, and then I turned up, and I suppose I was the first one from the new crew really to kind of come in. And it was my first day, their last day, and yeah, we just did it. And it's quite a simple scene really, in terms of when you have two people who are the same person at different times in their life checking each other out. It's like you don't want to get in the way of it too much with too much blocking and too much moving around. Even you just want to have his face to face, and a kind of not to get too sort of federation about it, but to be like to be in a nexus. Do you know what I mean? And sort of like almost a void space. You know what I mean? And it isn't a void space. It's not like just a black studio with a white light coming from somewhere. But it's you just want it to be those people's faces. Do you know what I mean? Studying each other.
And we saw a hint of that shot at Comic-Con, and that was there, and it looks great.
Yeah, no,
it looks intense.
Yeah, it's quite an intense film, isn't it? I mean, like, I think all the X-Men films have been quite intense. I think First Class was slightly less so. I think First Class was quite emotionally kind of intense at times, but it was more camp and more sort of, I think it was more light-hearted at times as well. But other than that, I think a lot of the X-Men films have been quite intense and quite serious and stuff like that, and that definitely happens in this. I think we've brought some of the levity and some of the perhaps frivolity from First Class into this, because you have to. I think if you're going to use that cast, you can't just kind of go, that part of you guys that got you the job last time, we don't fucking want that this time. So, and I think what Brian's done superbly and really it's a difficult job, is that he's taken two very different casts that have created two very different sort of esprit de corps or tones, and he's managed to meld that really brilliantly.
Does working with Patrick kind of like inform a portrayal of him? Like, did you notice little things that you kind of picked up, or are you just going by?
No, I don't do anything that Patrick does really, which is the whole point for me. I think maybe towards the end of a third movie, if we make a third movie, the natural place for my character to go would be to become much more like him. Well, I don't think it should be that he just decides to shave his head. I think it should be for a reason. I think it should be, like in the comic books, it was for a reason. He lost his hair as a result of something. It wasn't just like gradual hair loss, do you know what I mean? Which would be so dull in this world where people can control metal and fucking, poison tongues and shit, and the Wolverine and all that. And it's like, hey, how did that mutant lose his hair? It's like, I just fell out. And we obviously didn't decide to do that in First Class, and they obviously didn't decide to do it in this one. We went the opposite way. But I think there's got to be a reason. I had an idea for this movie, but they ultimately didn't go with it, which I thought was fucking cool. I can't tell you because it might be in the next one. But it involved a lot of sort of violent hair cropping. I don't really do much that Patrick does. I mean, even I do this, which he never did. Partly because it's in the comic books a lot, but partly also because I thought it was helpful to give the audience a visual cue as to when exactly he was doing shit and when he exactly wasn't doing shit. And also just to physicalise the kind of all the stuff a little bit is important.
I'm curious, the X-Men First Class is a great movie. Audiences really dug it, critics really dug it. How did you feel like coming back for the sequel, knowing that there's a lot more expectation on this film, I think, than the previous one?
It felt like it was time to change with the last one, so it felt cool because it felt like we were trying to do something new. So if it didn't work, big deal, and if it did work, bonus, you know. So with this one, with the size of the cast, with the names in the cast, and with the size of the bloody budget, you go, I hope this works out. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, as well, I've always felt lucky just to be employed, and to be employed in, you know, jobs with a certain level of scale to them. So, if it all falls apart tomorrow, I've had a good innings. So I kind of feel a great weight of expectation, but I kind of don't as well. I don't really care if it doesn't work out. They'll always be like, no, but you know what I mean? Like, you go into it with the best of intentions, and that's all you can do, you know? If this movie fails horribly, I don't really think I'll lose too much sleep over it. But don't get me wrong, I'll do everything I can to try and help make it a success. But yeah, you know, you got to roll with the punches, and you win some, you lose some, and we've all lost some, and we've all won some. So yeah, I don't think I'd worry too much. X-Men will always be around, whether the movie's made by Fox or whoever they're made by are. X-Men will always be around, stuck around for years, you know what I mean, for decades. So there's an endearing and an enduring quality to the material that I don't think that we could possibly screw up so much that it disappears.
Well, one of the things about First Class that myself and I think a lot of people responded to were just the great dialogue scenes between characters, because the action is in every movie, but it's the characters and the dialogue that really matters. Yeah, we hope so. And I'm just curious if you could talk about when you got the script, were you looking at those dialogue scenes, seeing, hey, what'd they do, and what can you tease people about this sequel?
Can't tease you about this one. What can I tease you about the dialogue scenes? I get to cuss a little bit, which is good.
Do you think you're going to be the one with the F-bomb?
If I was a betting man, I'd go with it. I don't want to tell nobody. How many F-bombs are you allowed? You're allowed one. Yeah. It may be me. Charles is messed up, and he's pretty louche. You know, he was kind of preppy. He was a bit of a cad in the last one. He was quite preppy and all that kind of stuff. But in this one, he's much more a child of the 70s and psychedelia and narcotics, and he's a mess. He's a fucking... I mean, I look quite together right now, but we've just tried to bust Magneto out of the Pentagon, so that's why I'm trying to look okay. But like, generally, he looks a mess. And his dialogue's quite... sort of reflects that, really. And his interactions with people reflect that, really. Weirdly, a lot of my stuff is with Hugh and with Nick. Hugh, we've started calling him Hugo Boss. Because you can call somebody called Hugo, and he's the boss. So he is Hugo Boss. Yeah, and so it's a different dynamic. I'm very much the problem, and he's actually very much the kind of Charles Xavier, trying to help fix me, trying to go, what does this kid need to get to the root of his problem and unlock his potential and all that. And I'm very much, weirdly, like the Logan of old, in that I'm angry all the time. I'm irrational. I kind of just want to have a fight all the time, and then I just want to disappear and forget about it all, you know.
You've got the hair as well.
And you what?
You've got the hair too.
And I've got stupid hair. Yeah. I actually make fun of his hair in this movie.
Nick told us about, he was shooting a scene, you guys were shooting a scene together, he had to react to something, and you punched him.
Did he tell? He finally told somebody. Yeah. He's been like, every interview he's done, he's like, shit, I forgot to tell him that he punched me in the balls. I'm glad he finally got that out. It was a total accident. It was they were doing a shot on me, actually, and we were meant to be reacting to these bright lights and like flinching at them because they were meant to be explosions going off around us, and it was like fuck. And then I just noticed that the cameraman decided to pan over to Nick, and we hadn't been warned that he was going to do that. And I didn't think that Nick knew the camera was on him. and he wasn't flinching. So I thought, I'll just like smack him. And I was trapped under this truss, so I could only get through to him like that. And so I decided to kind of like hit him to make him flinch or something like that. And I just went, boom, and I smacked him right in the balls. And he thinks it was because I was angry at him because the camera had left me. Yeah, which I was. Yeah. But he's been a joy. Him and Hugh have been brilliant to work with. I had a great time working with Michael on the last one. We've weirdly, strangely and sadly had less to do together on this one, which has been a great sadness for me. But the nice discovery is that Nick and Hugh have just been awesome, you know.
Well, there's a lot, from what I understand with Brian, the way he works, he'll workshop things. He feels it's not working, or there could be a little bit more improv versus, say, with Matthew Vaughn, or at least this is what I'm getting.
I don't know if that's true. I think they're both quite into a bit of that. Yeah, no, definitely. There's definitely been a bit of improv in this, but I wouldn't say any more. I would say there's more in the last one. Yeah, Matthew was very, very free with like bold ideas and taking it as far as you can. Like, so for example, there was a scene that got cut, which I think is somewhere on the internet, of Michael dressed up as a tranny. Mm-hmm. You've seen that?
Oh, right, yeah.
You seen that?
Right, yeah.
It's in the scene where we go to Zoe Kravitz and she's like, cool, Magneto, you can fucking pour champagne with your mind. She goes like, what can you do? And that was the scene as it was. She goes, what can you do? And then I put my fingers to my temples and I make her believe that he's a transvestite. And he's sitting next to me and he's going like, what? And I'm like, you've never looked more right. And like, so that totally got fucking caught. But he was really cool at sort of letting us go quite crazy. So I would definitely say there was more of that in the last one. However, there is a workshop environment in this one where we'll all sit around and talk about it and like chat about it for days before, and like if we've got a time on the weekend we'll sit and talk about the script and all that. And yeah, there's definitely room for improvisation on this as well, but I'd definitely say no more so than the last one. They're quite similar in that respect, but with different outcomes, I think, you know. I think Brian is a much sort of, he wants a much darker, more serious kind of approach, whereas Matthew was looking to dress Michael Fassbender up as a tranny. You know?
We have time for one more.
Well, I was just going to ask if you respond particularly well to that environment. Is the freedom to go off and maybe to go off the page a little bit something that is really valuable for you?
Yeah, and also don't get me wrong, it's never like wildly mentally off. It's not like you're suddenly giving 4 pages of Oscar-winning dialogue. Do you know what I mean? It's a line here and a line there. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, why don't we tweak this and put that in? And to be honest with you, I have been on a couple of films that didn't do this, and it was quite strong about it. But most films that I've been on, you do a bit of that. And I'm not taking any credit away from writers. I'm not one of those actors that's saying like, hey, we write half of this shit. Although in some films I've known people have been on films where it has been like they've written most of it. But yeah, most films need a bit of that or ask for a bit of that, because what's on the page will never truly be recreated perfectly off the page. And also a movie becomes what it's going to be in the first couple of weeks, and even more in the next couple of weeks, and even more in the next couple of weeks, and suddenly you've got something that was, if not in dialogue, but or structure, is actually in its feeling and in its soul is a very different beast from what was on the page, and you have to adjust accordingly, you know. So yeah, but I have been on a couple of jobs where it's like, that's where the full stop is, dude. And see then, that's the comma, dude, right? And see what it says, you turn round. That's where you turn round, dude. And you're like, okay, dude. Okay, dude. But those are few and far between. I've only done like 2 or 3 of those. And only one of them with any kind of level of happiness. Yeah.
I know you got to go, but I have to ask: have you been able to go out with like the cast at all? And what's the reaction in a restaurant when like you're sitting with Fassbender and
we've
everybody
been fairly.
I should say the bar. I'm sorry.
We've been to the bar. We've been to the restaurants. We've been to the everywhere. It's been fairly low key response actually. It's been pretty cool. If you went out with Hugo Boss, I think that might be different because he is on the Wolverine beach. My favourite line from any fucking X-Men movie: "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch." we've just got this whole idea of Hugh that like he's constantly fucking in character. He's like his wife's like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" He's like, "I'm the Wolverine, dude." Getting his imaginary claws out. If it was with him, I suppose it was different. Jen gets a lot of shit. But the rest of us are fairly sort of left to our own devices, which is cool. We've been out tons, we're very social cast. One of the joys of having such a big cast is that, and this is an answer to the question as well, like, do you feel huge responsibility? If this film was all about me, if this film was all about Michael, if this film was all about Nick or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, woof. Do you know what I mean? If this goes down, it's going down on my shoulders, do you know what I mean? But there are 175 leading actors in this film. And we share the burden. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, Captain Picard fucked up as well. Ain't my fault. Gandalf fucked up scene 5. Do you know what I mean? So you can sort of like, you can spread the guilt. Do you know what I mean? And also, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, we get a lot of time off as well. So because it's such a big cast, so we've had good times.